Hello, NBA friends, and welcome in again to our NBA Roundtable. My name is Matt Eppers. I am a digital producer at USA Today Sports, and I am joined, as always, by my colleague, NBA reporter Jeff Zillgitt. Jeff and I want to touch on three teams currently in the news and a little two-man game for you in this edition of the Roundtable. And Jeff, let's begin in Chicago. What has stood out to you most about the Bulls so far, Jeff?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. And look, I am a big believer. You've heard me say this before, that this is a players' league. But I also think that the coach and the coaching staff sets a tone offensively and defensively. And I think Billy Donovan. And then you mentioned the roster and all the offseason moves. And even dating back to last season when they traded for Nikola Vucevic. Okay? So you're starting to show, and this is what I really like about what President of Basketball Ops, Arturas Karnisovas, has done, is that he didn't decide we're going to do a protracted rebuild that's going to take, 6, 7, 8 seasons. We're going to go out and get players right now. So we're going to get Vucevic. We're going to find a way to get DeMar DeRozan. We're going to find a way to acquire Lonzo Ball. And then we're going to go out and which I think might be one thing the Lakers look back on, no matter how much money they would have had to pay in luxury tax, sign Alex Caruso. Yeah. Let's start putting a quality roster together. 2 premier scorers like DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine, and then a distributor, playmaker, facilitator, however you want to use it, and Lonzo Ball. You can start to see why this Bulls team is rounding out to the shape it's in. This isn't a huge surprise. It's not like, the Bulls are the surprise of the Eastern Conference. We sort of expected this, but the thing that's happening is they're really coming through on what they put together.
It's really made for a potent and fun offense to watch thus far. Let's shift now to another team in the East that got off to a fast start, but one who hasn't really been able to sustain it. The New York Knicks, who have really stumbled since starting the season 5-1. Jeff, that hot start already feels so long ago, doesn't it? We're not seeing any viral videos of fans shouting "Bing Bong" outside Madison Square Garden lately. How have things gone sideways so quickly for the Knicks?
Matt, defensively is a big part of it, which is a surprise with the Tom Thibodeau team. He puts a strong defense on the court by and large. But if you look at some of their moves, and I'm talking getting Evan Fournier, getting Kemba Walker, just on the surface, they did trade or lost some defense in exchange for offense. It may just come down to that the Bulls are going to have to be an active participant in searching for upgrades to the roster. Now, who that means and what that means right now, I'm not quite sure yet. But if this is a team that had its eyes set on improving from last season, there's not that improvement there right now. And so teams are going to have to, when that situation arises, is to look at the roster and figure out what they need to do if what they have on that roster isn't working.
To close this edition, we wanted to shift out west to another team that is kind of stumbling around a little bit, and that's the Portland Trail Blazers, who recently parted ways with longtime front office head Neil O'Shea. And Jeff, up until this past offseason, the Trailblazers had really been one of the more stable organizations in the NBA. But now they have a first-year head coach in Chauncey Billups, who replaced Terry Stotts. They're going to have a new front office incoming. Where does this team sort of stand? It seems like they're at a bit of a crossroads about what their future is going to be.
They have some big decisions to make. Matt, how many years have we been talking about the idea of either trading or breaking up the C.J. McCollum, Damian Lillard partnership? Maybe we're getting closer to that. Now, I think it's going to be up to the new president of basketball operations or general manager, whoever they end up bringing in. But this might be the point. This roster, Damian Lillard in particular, was promised by Neil O'Shea that they were going to make the improvements to the team that made them a competitor to win the Western Conference. We look at the standings right now, Matt, that's not happening. They may not even make the play-in game if this continues. The roster hasn't been improved. They were selling it on Chauncey Billups, having a big hand in improving this team. That hasn't happened yet for a first-year coach. And so this franchise has lots of decisions to make. And, just sort of referencing what the Chicago Bulls did. It wasn't a rebuild necessarily on the fly. It wasn't a protracted rebuild. They went out and did it. I think the Portland Trailblazers are sort of coming to that where they're going to have to make a decision of, do we do a long rebuild like some other teams are doing? Maybe not as drastic as the Oklahoma City Thunder. But they do something maybe more in the lines of what Denver did, what Cleveland is doing right now, or what the Atlanta Hawks did, and start to break up that team a little bit. And for a guy like Damian, who ultimately wants to win a championship, and I realize that guys don't win one and their careers play out just fine and everything. But while you're still in the moment, he wants to win a championship. And so while he may not go to the new front office immediately and ask for a trade or demand other things, we have to keep our eye on the situation to see if indeed he is a long-term fit for the Portland Trailblazers and whether or not he wants to be a long-time fit. He's coming up for a contract extension, and if the Blazers aren't willing, or he doesn't like the offer, or he's not confident in what they can do, he may at that point ask, but the Blazers may end up being in a situation where they have to trade him for the proverbial, lose him or get nothing kind of scenario. And I don't think they want that. And so when it comes down to it, we may be looking at a situation, maybe CJ McCollum is the first to go, who knows, in a trade, but we may get to a point where the Blazers are forced to trade Damian Lillard, whether it's because Lillard is explicitly asking for the trade or whether the organization feels they just need to go in another direction.